Welcome to Vendavo Commercial Excellence Month Live. This is 4 weeks of events, 17 sessions in all with over 27 speakers. Now, first off, I've got a couple of introductions I want to make. Joining me today, Carl Larson and Nicholas Lindstrom. So Carl is our Vice President of System Solutions here at Vendavo. Carl is responsible for the entire price point solution and the team behind it. He's got more than 10 years experience in price relating change management projects and also acts as a senior consultant and project owner for implementation projects. Thanks for joining us, Carl.
Thank you, Mitch. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet, you bet. And we're really excited to have Nicholas Lindstrom. He's pricing manager at Xylem. Nicholas has worked in several roles at Xylem over the past 10 years. He was vital in the project team, which implemented Vendavo's price point for configuring Xylem products. Nicholas has a master's degree in terms of his training and his background. That master's is in engineering and corporate finance, and he got that at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. Nicholas, we're very pleased to have you here to share the story of your success.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to this session.
Very good. Glad to have you. And of course, my name is Mitch Lee. I'm the Profit Evangelist here at Vendavo. You've probably seen me in your email inbox as the Profit Prophet, but today I'm happy to serve as your humble host. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. First, our obligatory disclaimer. Essentially, what we discussed today is subject to change. Wanted to remind you that we have announced our latest solution, Margin Bridge Analyzer, last month. And during one of our COMEX sessions earlier, we reviewed our capabilities, and we even have a demo of that that's on demand now. There is a special offer, 6 months free trial, and we've opened this offer up to everyone. Now, there are some qualifying requirements, so reach out soon. The support services around this are limited, and folks are already signing on the dotted line for this. It's flexible causality capabilities built for enterprise level requirements. Reach out to us to take action right now. Now, during the session today, we will be taking questions. Primarily, we'll be addressing those at the end of the session. But your questions can be coming in using the Q&A function there on your Zoom toolbar. The questions are going to be visible only to the panelists, but of course you can also choose to ask those anonymously. Taking a quick look at coming events. Well, we're concluding Commercial Excellence Month tomorrow on Friday the 29th with a customer-only session for a deep dive into the EPS platform. In all these customer-focused sessions, we've been discussing real market solutions for real market problems. Now, we are sending links for on-demand view of our sessions. If you've registered, you'll get an email with links and a recap a few days afterwards. And of course, you can always check back on our website as we make those event links available there as well. Some of the highlights of the sessions you'll find available for on-demand viewing. We talked about how to recover with accelerated benefit with a great set of thought leaders, pricing concepts for the C-suite, and discussion with Vendavo customers on their success in moving to the cloud. We talked about actions for pricing in disruptive environments, including services offerings to help you move to real business outcomes. We debuted our latest solution, as I mentioned earlier, with Margin Bridge Analyzer. We turned to the fact then that a capital CPQ is truly the ultimate pricing execution solution. We reviewed Vendavo value consulting capabilities, helping drive higher and higher ROI on Vendavo investments. And then we did deep dives into the new capabilities and the roadmap for what's coming next across several of our solutions and service offerings, covering Vendavo CPQ, Vendavo Price Point, Vendavo's commercial intelligence capabilities, and Vendavo Value Consulting. So you can use that scanned code to register for tomorrow's session if you're a customer, or head over to vendavo.com as well. And of course, you can catch up on anything there that you might have missed. But before we turn to today's discussion, let's talk about how this session fits in with our month-long virtual event and what's going on around us. Just like you, we've pivoted to continue to deliver value to our community in these turbulent times. And the community we're talking about is the pricers, the sales leaders, the P&L owners that are responsible for sustainable profitability, addressing all those internal challenges and the externalities that we're all aware of as we move towards creating a path for growth and investment in those businesses. To frame our thinking in these turbulent times, we're using a 3-phase framework to organize perspectives for action by looking at what's happening and what needs to be done today, tomorrow, and in the future. The first phase, disruption. I think we're all very much familiar with what that means and have great examples to talk about. But then that pace slows a little bit and you're repeating how you address those immediate problems with learnings. What you did a couple of times before now starts to become a pattern. Now you're in the new normal. As we look around, depending on your circumstances, that's probably showing up more and more now. But here's the difficult part. You need to look for the shift because it's more about surviving a crisis and accommodating the new normal. It's about being ready to thrive. Yes, you absolutely have to manage through it, but more importantly, you need to adapt yourself and your organization for what's on the other side of the new normal. This is the transformation phase, and that's the basis for thriving on the other side. And that's why we're working on and talking about commercial excellence. So for this month-long event, it really boils down to this. We're connecting in different ways. For example, we're now virtual instead of being face-to-face, but the objectives are the same and certainly with a greater degree of urgency. So let's get started. So here we are on May 28th. So that means it's week 4 and session 16 of Commercial Excellence Month. Today's session is about Xylem's success in pricing and how they took what they learned on the spare parts side and applied that to the pricing of configurable products. Let's turn now to our agenda. First off, Nicholas is going to walk us through the history and about Xylem, what their business model is. Carl then is going to talk to us about the history of Xylem and Vendavo. And then Nicholas will walk us through spare parts pricing and configurable parts pricing, and then give us a little bit of a look into the future in terms of collaboration with Vendavo. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we'll turn to Q&A via that Zoom function on your toolbar. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nicholas.
Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, before I hand over to Carl, I will start with a short introduction of Xylem. Xylem is one of the world-leading water equipment companies, and we supply products to manage water through the complete water cycle. We manufacture and sell products for clean water and wastewater and drainage pumping. And we have equipment for water treatment and mixing and measuring and controlling and testing. So under the umbrella right now, under the Xylem umbrella, there are about 50 brands. And all of them are in one way or another related to the water industry. I think you can, yeah. So this is just Xylem at a glance. We were exceeding 5 billion last year. Currently, we are about 17,000 employees worldwide. I will talk a lot later, but now I hand over to Carl, who will take you through the almost 15 years of collaboration, Xylem and Vendavo.
Thank you very much, Niklas. Thanks for the overview. So I want to give you a brief overview of these almost 15 years of history we have together and the work we've done throughout the years. So we actually started already back in 2006 with a spare parts pricing pre-study. And I will come back with some details in a couple of moments, but it was a successful pre-study. So back in 2007, we continued with a spare parts pricing project, full implementation running throughout 2007 with a launch of new value-based and market-driven pricing in 2008 for the spare part assortment we addressed. The work included classification of all products, spare parts, definition of new pricing strategies, market surveys, and rollout of new pricing. And in parallel, the IT stream of the project included installation, configuration, and integration of price point together with training, etc. And throughout the years, the scope coverage was expanding, and both in regards to product scope and market scope that we supported. And in the first few years, we also were deploying a price dampening strategy so that the reference price, called IPL for Xylem, gradually moved towards the target price that we defined based on the new pricing strategies we had deployed, so that we were in control of the change over time. Also did some changes in the core processes, so price revision process, etc. And since then, PricePoint has been used as the pricing solution for the central pricing team at Xylem for spare parts. And something worth mentioning is that Xylem also has been using 3 different generations of PricePoint. So they started with generation 2, upgraded to generation 3, and then to generation 4, which is the current generation that we support all our clients with. And then in 2017, the configurable product pricing project was initiated, and Niklas will talk more about that shortly. So first I'll start to share some material about the initial spare parts pricing project to get some context into what we did. So please go to the next slide, Mitch. So the target here was to go from cost plus pricing into value-based and market-driven pricing. And in order to be able to do that, you need to know what you sell. So there are thousands of spare parts, but it's still critical to categorize all of them based on their market situation. And in this project, we used these different main categories. So the key parts were the unique spare parts with Xylem design. And it's going to be some motors and impellers and mechanical seals and other key components of the pumps that we'll have a couple of examples of shortly. Then we had general parts which had Xylem design, but not possible to define as a key part. It's possibly to source that in from other sources in the market, etc. And then you have the standard parts, which are really the bolts and nuts and O-rings and things like that, which are not unique. And here you can also see a little bit on how we position them in regards to the perceived value of the end customer and the competition level in the market of the individual products. And obviously there were also other parts like service kits and tools, etc., that did not fit in this particular view, but they were also treated separately. And depending on the market situation, different pricing strategies can apply. So for example, the key parts are often possible to price based on a value-based pricing strategy, while the general parts are more generally available in the market from several sources. So then you need to have a more market-based strategy for those products. And the standard parts typically have a low value, but you need to make sure that they're not obviously mispriced, if you will. So if you zoom in a little bit on the key parts, you can go to this slide exactly. This is a 3127 wastewater pump. And here you can also see the main key part components. You have the wearing, impeller, shaft unit, stator, mechanical seal, and the pump housing. And the key parts are the most important components of the product, which are also Xylem unique. So in order to price them value-based, what we actually did is that we performed market surveys to understand how the perceived value could be positioned against the product value, which holds the market price or the value in the mind of the customers, if you will. This information helped us to anchor the price points of the key parts against the product price. That is the basis here of the value the end customer perceives. And these value surveys that we conducted, or market surveys, we did them both towards internal employees in the Xylem organization in these 8 different countries that we visited, but also together with end customers and end users of these pump applications. And I was, for example, supporting the survey we conducted in France. And even though I was trying to get around with my school French, it was great to get support from the local market company there at Xylem. And we're able to bring that in to our pricing models. And the next step was to make sure that we had control of the pricing of similar components and similar products, so that we could easily defend and explain the prices. So that means that a component that has a very similar attribute also needs to have a similar price. So basically have order in the house. So if we have the same material, weight and size, we need to know that we have a similar price. And then the other way around, when there are differences that can easily be explained, such as differences in the product attributes, then also differentiated price can be explained. So this is enabling the market teams and the sales teams, etc., to explain price differences within the assortments Xylem offers. If you go to the next slide, exactly, the price drivers for the key parts. So that means that the anchoring point or the primary price driver that we used for the key parts were based on the price of the product it belonged to. But then we adjusted the price based on secondary value drivers such as weight and diameter and shaft power, etc., depending on which type of component it was. And if the product could be fitted into multiple products, it was also a very similar approach, but then the price structure was more important. So you can see the difference here in which the primary price driver was in the pricing strategy model. But then what we also did and what we had to consider is that if the price we had would be supporting an economical repair case. So what does that mean? Basically, what we wanted to do is to understand how the component prices and spare part prices fit into the offering that Xylem has towards the end customer. So the larger and more expensive products we have, the higher expectations we have on the possibilities to repair the product. And then we need to be in control of that in the pricing strategy as well. A small mass market product is often easier to replace completely than repair it. At least from a cost perspective, when we include labor rates, etc., for the service technician and so forth. So the repair cases that were evaluated needed to take the spare parts and the service hours into consideration, as well as matching that against the residual value of the product in the application that was installed in. So this consideration enabled us to understand the different threshold levels we had to have in mind when we did price these components. Since some of these components have a quite high value in relation to the products they have, we also need to understand which boundaries we have in order to still have an offering to the market which the end customers would want to have, so to speak. This was some of the insights into what kind of work that took place to price the spare parts for Xylem. And other spare part categories took other market considerations in mind, but it all resulted in a spare parts pricing framework that supports both new parts pricing, price maintenance, and price revisions for the complete assortment based on value-based and market-driven pricing strategies. And as I mentioned, in the beginning of 2017, we also started to support the pricing for the configurable pumps. And Niklas, I hope that you can share some your insights on what you have done on that side of the business.
Yes, thank you, Carl. Yeah, I will speak about the configurable products pricing, as we call it. And one of the largest Xylem brands are the flight pumps and mixers, and that is what I will focus on in this presentation. In 2017, we decided that we wanted to price these products in price point. We had a very old and outdated pricing system that was quite heavy to manage, so we tried to find a new solution for this. To understand our challenges in the pricing, I will show you some data and information about the Flygt product setup. Currently, we have about 300 versions of Flygt products. As you can see in the picture here, there are some mixers, there are some dewatering pumps, and some sewage pumps in different sizes. So overall, there are about 300 of them. And every version, every 300 versions is built on the same structure. We have 10 modules, manufactured modules, module groups. So we see here we have the motors in module 1, you see the picture, and we have the cables in module 5, etc. And all the module groups consists of about 10 selections or 10 modules. So we can select, as you see, if you go one more image. Now back, I think there was, please go back a slide. Wasn't it? Yeah, there, yes, exactly. So you see here that the motors, the module group 1, you see that 101 is a rated power of 7.5 kilowatt. 102 is 9 kilowatt, etc. So as you can understand, this is millions of possible configurations for our pumps. So we're facing two major challenges. I think you can go back again. There we have it. Yeah. So we have two challenges. First of all, to price a product configuration without the need to create an identity or a part number. Because if we need to create an identity or part number for every single configuration, it will be a system with millions of part numbers. But also to find a way to price the configuration without having to price all the included modules separately, because also there are a lot of modules, because we have hundreds of modules for 300 of product versions. Now you can go on forward. Thank you.
I think I've got it straightened out now, Nicholas. There you go.
Thank you. So this is an example of a basic pump. This is a 3153 pump. It's a sewage pump. So here you see the manufacturing modules, the module chain. In module 100, you can see the stator 9 kilowatt as an example. So when we receive an order for this module chain, we create an identity, a product number. But before an order, we would like to quote this configuration. And for that, we don't need the identity. We just need a description to be able to price and quote this one. Now you can go one ahead. So again, you see the module chain here. So instead of pricing every unique module, we have defined a general price equation, and then we have defined which of the product characteristics should be driving the price. And this is the basic equation. So it's bare pump, and we have some multipliers and some adders. And on the bare pumps, you see we have the power, we have, as an example, the outlet size, and we have the frequency. So as an example, the power value driver can be the rated power multiplied by 10,000 or something. And then we have the multipliers. That is the approval. It's if it is an explosion-proof pump, or the impeller material, or the impeller type. And here we say that if the pump consists of a hot iron impeller, we want to add 15% on the bare pump price, as an example. Or if it's a explosion-proof pump, we want to price this 20% up from the standard pump. And then we have the adders. That can be cables, sensors, and coating, as an example. And here we have the same price for all the versions. So we say that the cable in this case, this cable fits a large variety of pumps, but we still would like to have exactly the same price for this cable in all the products. And by this, we also can go from the cost-based pricing to the market prices. Yes, can go to next. So just for you to understand how we do this, I will show you some simplified equation. So this equation is set per product type. We have one for mixers, we have one for the watering pumps, and one for sewage pumps, we can say. So in this case, we can look at the equation here. We have the outlet size plus 4,900 multiplied by the rated power, and this is the bare pump price. And then we have, to get to the base model, we have some multipliers, impeller material as an example, or EX classification. And then when we add the options or the adders, we have the configured product, the full configured product. So in this case, you see the equation and you see I've done a small list with value drivers for two different products here. We have 3153 and 3171 product. As you can see here, the bare pump value drivers, they differ from the 3153 and 3171. The multipliers and the adders here are the same for the two pumps. As you can see that the hard iron factor is 1.15, saying that if we have a hard iron pump, we will price that 15% more expensive than the cast iron pump. And the cable also, you see here that we can have the same cable for the two pumps, and the price should be the same for the cable, not depending on which pump it is. So here I selected a product, or Mitch selected this product. It's a Flight 3153, 9 kilowatt with 100 outlet and a hard iron impeller with 10 meters of cable. And price point now for us is calculating this price automatically. So we don't have to set up identity or a product number. We just pick from the module chain, we pick the value drivers we have defined to get to the reference price. This is a quite simplified equation and price drivers. If you go to the next slide there, Mitch. Thank you. This can be the reality. This is a real equation, one of them. This is one of the largest ones, but you see we have defined a lot of value drivers. The good thing is that we can copy the value drivers from one product to another. And also we can copy the equations from one product to another. So we can set the price for the cable on one place, and then we just add it to the others automatically.
And Nicholas, I got to imagine that the ability to quote with really, really specific situations in mind, but not having to set that up as a part number in your ERP system is a very agile way to support your sales team in terms of being able to get that in front of the customer quickly, right? Yeah, definitely. And I mean, our salespeople, they think, I mean, this is handy for everyone because the administrators of pricing and in the factory, they don't want millions of product numbers because it's impossible to manage. And, yeah. And also the salespeople think that to get a price without having the identity is very good, because in the end you can also change, because in the first offer you price something without an identity, then maybe the customer is just changing. They want 50 meters instead of 10 meters of cable. And that is not a big deal now, because you don't have to create a new identity, etc. Yeah, not a bunch of dead unused SKUs in your ERP system to maintain and manage.
No, exactly. So it's really handy.
Okay.
I think you can go to the next one there, Mitch. Thank you. So this was a very summarized picture of what we are doing, but here we see this price point impact, and I've divided it into three areas. First, the pricing quality. Now we have market pricing instead of cost-based pricing, because we can say that we want the explosion-proof pumps to be 20% more expensive on all pumps, because we think that is what the market expects from us. Also, the pricing between the different products are logical and lined because we use the same factors for a hard iron version, as an example. And also we have eliminated the manual errors because now we really see the value drivers listed and the equations. Also, it's very efficient. Just as I said before, instead of changing all the modules, we just go and change one value driver, a cable as an example, change the price of that instead of hundreds of modules. And also what I have seen the last, because I work with this quite a lot, and I get a lot of questions from the international sales companies, and they ask me why do this pump have this price and why do that pump have another price. I can in 1 minute just look and say that but this is because you have a different outlet. This is the price difference. So it's very easy to defend and explain the pricing. Also, a single source of price. We have the factory ERP, we have configuration tools and quotation tools, all get the pricing from price point. So it's one source, and it's very easy to manage that source.
I think, Nicholas, that's a key point there. We talked a moment ago about the ability to gen up a quote without generating a specific SKU, but then having allowable, correctly configured quotes means that the configuration logic is valid and immediately transfers over to your ERP system once that quote has been accepted and it's actually a sale. So you're not having to make this mismatched connection between a system that quotes and another system that is tied to what you can actually build or supply. That's got to be a tremendous advantage there.
Yeah, definitely. And we're really minimizing the number of created product numbers or identities now.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this is a little about our future. So today in price point, I don't know if I said that, but we started using this methodology for pricing of configurable products more than a year ago. It was in March last year. So today we have the reference price, what we call the IPL in price point. This is set by the product management. We also have the transfer prices to the international sales companies. This is set by finance, but they are 100% based on the reference price by a factor. Still, the local market prices, the local list prices, they are managed separately by the sales companies, the international sales companies. And this is our future vision, is to include the management of the local pricing in price point. We see a lot of benefits with this. We will have a more consistent pricing between the different markets. We look at the Netherlands and Belgium as an example. They maybe tend to today price their products completely different, but it's just it's a border between the countries, but I mean it's really open. So we see that to get our sales guys or the sales companies to have a more consistent pricing, I think we will really benefit on that as a company. And also have one pricing tool throughout the company, because now we have local pricing solutions in almost every sales company worldwide. But I mean, one pricing tool should save very much time and resources, definitely. And of course we want, because we have now, you saw our reference pricing here, and of course we want the local pricing to be 100% based on this reference pricing. If we say that hot iron should be 15% more expensive than cast iron, that is a decision taken by the product management, and we think that also the local pricing should be reflected in that decision. And then the last point is that the product management here, where I sit at the product development, then we'll have a better visibility of the local pricing because we have them in one single system.
That makes a tremendous amount of sense, Nicholas. I'm particularly excited to have you talk about what you've done. We hear a lot right now about companies that have been focused on their core products and services and spare parts and aftermarket types of businesses have, in general, been kind of afterthoughts. We make the big things and then we, of course, sell things to maintain them. What you've done at Xylem is you've focused on making sure that the aftermarket service parts, that part of the business is robust, and you're actually now taking what you've learned and you're moving that back into your core products with the knowledge around pricing, the systems and the processes, and expanding that in. So I think it's a really interesting turn for people to think about as they look from the inside out. You kind of started from the outside and bringing that back in. So it's a great perspective here.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Fantastic. All right, so looking at where we are right now, I think it's time to turn to Q&A, and we will have a couple of questions here, and we actually have a question coming in from one of the attendees, and I'll ask that one first. So probably I'll pitch this to you, Nicholas, first, and then Carl, you can weigh in as well, of course. Just a question about fixed value in the equation formula. Is it generally defined by Vendavo, meaning I think the software having a specified value rather? Does it happen after several years of using it, or do you remember how it was calculated? So the core value as opposed to those adders, where did that come from?
Yeah, and I can ask you, Nicholas, to also elaborate a little bit about things that you need to consider throughout the price revision process and the price maintenance process, since it's closely linked to this question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly, but I mean, what we did when we entered price point or the new, I mean, we had a pricing previously of all the products, and we said that at that time we said that the core products, the high volume products, are almost at a good level, a standard product. And then so we actually built up the value drivers around that one. And then the products that are like the standard products but not exactly, it was there where we could define them or change them in pricing compared to the so to say core products. So what we do now in a price revision, as an example, we of course go through. I do this all the time. I go through the value drivers and see so the prices are correct, and also we look at the sales to see if we have lost sales of a specific product, and then of course we have to look at the pricing to see should we really add on 70% for a stainless steel pump, as an example. So that is of course no ongoing work, and
sure. You kind of have to pick a point to start from, right, with your base products, and say that's a good reflection of the market, of your ability to sell those products and market demand. And then you look for differences, and this is where the Vendavo analytics comes in to start teasing out. You're seeing better performance on some. What are the value drivers there? Working with the value studies that you did internally, saying, given the base products, how do we differentiate on the value on these, and then that's the basis for pricing on those groupings based on those values. Carl, is that pretty close?
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to add to this that I hope that Nicholas can elaborate is that in the price revision process, you want to have control on both the price development of the bare product, as well as the adders and the multipliers in the equation, to have control on different parts. Could you explain a little bit about that, perhaps, Nicholas?
Yeah, I mean that was for some weeks it was a headache for us because we didn't really knew how to set this up, but because this is the situation that at the price revision, the product management says that okay, on all the watering pumps they should be increased by 10%, and all the sewage pumps should be increased by only 5%. Still, we want easy way of working with the pricing for the sales companies. So as an example, cables. We have a standard cable that fits both into the sewage pump and into the dewatering pump. But the dewatering pumps should be raised by 10 and the sewage pump by 5. So how to do with that? So we basically put in 2 additional value drivers, one that is called price revision, bare pump, and one that is called price revision adders or options. And by that, we only change the pricing on the bare pumps, and we leave the options by average percent, so to say. So at the price revision, so last price revision, let's say that we change the options by 5% on all products, but then we raised the dewatering pumps, the bare pumps 10%, and the sewage pumps 5%. So we have divided the price revision into actually two different sections, so to say.
And that, just to highlight, that is a little bit on how that fixed value gets maintained over time as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you made a great point there relative to using the information around what is the market saying about these value drivers to go back into your product development process in terms of when you're coming up with new products, what should the pricing be, and make sure that that's folded into something that if you find a couple of sweet spots on either side, that there are value drivers and there's an empty spot in between, then maybe that's an opportunity for product development to say, I need a variation that fits what would be a logical place between these value points, for example.
Yeah.
Great. Here's a great question. This is, I think, to you, Nicholas, on process here. Could you elaborate more about why local pricing needs to be 100% based on reference pricing? What if it conflicts with the value-based pricing? Does that make sense?
Take it again, please.
I think you made a comment why local pricing needs to be 100% based on reference pricing. So I think that was the conveyance of your pricing centrally to the local markets, right?
Yeah. I mean, what we say is the reference pricing. We have a very high level of reference prices, and then the sales companies, they are applying, or ideally, they have a local list price that is the reference price multiplied by 0.5 as an example. If they do that, because we have now with the price point set up, we have defined all the 300 versions. We say that the price difference between those 300 versions is logical. As it is now, the sales companies, they're not really looking into the reference pricing. They have had the same price for 15 years maybe. So basically their local list prices are based on old pricing, old reference pricing. And we have changed the reference price structure a lot since then. So we want them to implement the new reference pricing and base their local list prices on the reference pricing, because we think that the reference pricing and the difference between the prices on different versions are logical from our perspective. Of course, they know the market. In some markets, maybe they cannot price the hot iron by cast iron and 15% additional. But of course, we understand that. But on the minor details, we think that or at least I think that the reference pricing is correct.
You've baked in the value positioning on the reference price that's going out, and of course,
Yeah.
there's that dialogue between the folks on the front line, the sales folks are actually working with the customers, and the dialogue back to what we would like to see, and that's part of what you manage with your price point application as well.
Yeah.
And what I can add to the global rollouts when it comes to pricing, you want to distribute responsibility so that you can optimize those price differences between, well, how you want to optimize the price locally, but you want to still have control over the prices you have in neighboring markets, as Niklas was mentioning, between the Netherlands and Belgium, so that you're not sub-optimizing and destroying your own business. So it's a combination of, how should I say, giving the local markets support with a price which fits their market, and enabling them to do adaptations where needed, but still within a controlled framework.
You bet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the comment here also is that when we implemented this pricing, the reference pricing, we also implemented new transfer prices to the sales companies, because the transfer prices are based on the reference pricing. And at that time last year, some of the companies on some products, they had a transfer price that was 30% up from previously. And on some other products, they had 30% down on previously. We managed that by saying that the average, we changed the transfer factors on the reference price, so the average should be around 0. But of course, we had some highs and lows, and I received a lot of questions about that, and almost all the questions was very easy to look up, because they asked me, oh, why have this pump become 30% more expensive? And I could, in a couple of minutes, just go in and look and say that, okay, the price you had before was extremely inconsistent if you compare it to another product. So basically what I could say then was that before was wrong and now it's right. And they took it. I mean, because they understood that, okay, yeah, it's logical, of course.
Sure. People want to know fundamentally that they're not being treated differently with respect to the pricing, unless there are circumstances that say that this is why, this is the explanation of that. And yeah, big disparities there, you're always going to find those until you get all your pricing wrapped into a single platform that lets you manage, analyze, control, deploy on a consistent basis across your organization. Absolutely. Here's another question. Maybe you can answer this, Niklas, specifically, or maybe Carl, you answer this in the general. What's the ROI on your Vendavo investment?
Carl.
Yeah, obviously it's a great one. I'm not sure if we can disclose any figures here, but based on the numbers from the spare parts pricing initiative, perhaps you can spend a couple of words on that, Niklas. We've had a long, successful history, and I think that we've had some tough targets to meet, and we have met them.
Yeah, we have met them very greatly, I would say. I mean, we have because the configurable products we have only had in price point for 1 year, so it's too early to measure the impact, I would say. Spare parts, I was speaking just the other day or last week or 2 weeks ago with this manager of spare parts, and he showed me some numbers that we really have benefited from this, and better than expected. I cannot come with any specific numbers, but really we have. Yep.
We've done some work with a variety of folks, including Copperberg, in spare parts surveys and how people report benefit in general with similar spare parts businesses, and the benefits there are usually a little bit higher than the typical 1 to 3% of top line numbers dropping down to the bottom line. So if you're a $100 million business in your business unit, for example, that 1 to 3% is $1 million to $3 million benefit at the bottom line, versus whatever you would spend for a project like this. So pretty significant, and the 1 to 3% of revenue is a pretty easy thing to do. That's just kind of waking up and getting your coffee in the morning. There's a ton of value out beyond that. Yeah, thanks for that question. Next question here. This is a person who has responsibility for sales and pricing administration. I'll just ask the question. How do you incorporate competitor pricing and street pricing into your quoting price calculations and attributes?
Yeah, take it, Carl.
Yeah, I can start here. So what we've done so far is to make sure we have a high quality reference price to both the spare parts as well as the configurable products, enabling the sales team to have a strong starting point. When it comes to the spare part side, the product ranges that we saw, let's say, having a high level of competition, obviously the competitive price levels needs to be taken into account when defining those IPL or reference prices. When it comes to the configurable products, obviously at the point of sale, the salesperson is supported with high quality reference price as a starting point. But then it is the negotiation that needs to be done by the sales guy, taking these things into consideration. And so far, the support we have is to make sure that the sales team has the best starting points they can have.
Yeah, and I mean the flight configured products is not at all off-shelf products. So I mean it's different configurations in all quotes. So it is quite hard to really do a configuration and to see the competitor's price, because we always have different configurations. But of course, this is something to consider to work more with for us when we include the local pricing in the system.
For sure, for sure. One more little comment here, and I think that we'll be just about at the end here. A little bit of congratulations here to you, Nicholas. Here, fantastic! You've cracked the code on such a complex use case. And maybe the follow-up question here is to Carl. Given the complexity that Nicholas has dealt with in the configured parts business, would you say it would be simpler to deploy in more of a widget type business? And I think what he means is a non-configurable, more of a standard SKU.
Yeah, absolutely. It's less moving parts that you need to consider. So you would have a more simple process to deploy advanced pricing strategies, obviously. But when you have that type of business model, then you have the other hand, typically have more competition. You need to have more consideration of market pricing, etc., instead of the value-based pricing and those dimensions that you have when you have custom-made configurations as your main offering. So sure. There are, it's different challenges, but the deployment piece, it might be easier, but the actual strategics that you need to have in mind might not.
Sure. You would be much more likely to bring in competitive information as a base consideration as you do your pricing rules, for example. Absolutely. Excellent. Now, a couple of folks have asked questions or noted that we recorded this. Yes, absolutely. We will be sending out links to this so that you can be able to watch this on demand. Really appreciate everyone's questions on this. A few things for me to close out our session today. We touched quite a bit on the idea of commercial excellence. We actually have a link to the Vendavo Commercial Excellence Maturity Assessment Model. You can do this on your computer or your phone. You can just scan that. It's about 10 minutes or so, and you can see where you stand and compare your results to others who have taken the same assessment. Of course, feel free to reach out to us for a free business consultation that helped you get really granular on this. Really helps to know that that survey is just the beginning, but you really have to start taking steps. So when you get your location, we can help you plan your next steps. And we are offering free business consultation to put granularity and specificity on those actions for greater profitability. Sign up for your session today at vendavo.com. We also mentioned that we have launched our latest solution, Vendavo Margin Bridge Analyzer, and we do have an offer, 6 months free, and hurry and do register for that. There are some qualifying requirements, and we're happy to show you how that can help you identify actions, especially in today's market. A quick request to let us know what you think. If you're a customer, your feedback is critical to us, and your input helps us define the solution experience. It'll only take a few minutes to complete and submit. As a thank you, we'll send you a $25 gift card for each review you leave while supplies last. You can fill out more than one review, and you can see there's a link there for pricing on the left for an Amazon gift card, and a link for the CPQ applications on the right for a Visa gift card. So we really appreciate your support with this, and we look forward to continuing to deliver value for your business. Again, we conclude Commercial Excellence Month tomorrow on Friday the 29th with a customer-only session and a deep dive into the enterprise profitability solutions platform. Customers can use that scan code to register or head over to vendavo.com. And of course, you can catch up on all the sessions you might have missed with on-demand viewing. So again, Carl, Nicholas, thanks very much for sharing your success story, your work with us today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for inviting.
Thanks very much, guys. And thanks to everyone who joined us via the webcast. So this is Mitch Lee, your Profit Evangelist, saying, until we speak again, have a profitable day.